Sexual abuse and trafficking in Alaska is a very serious issue that has not been taken seriously for years. Alaska has nearly 80 rapes per 100,000 residents. With a rape rate that is 3 times the national average, many people view Alaska as a dangerous state to raise a family with these statistics. However, there are a few variables that apply to these outrageous numbers of innocent people who've been robbed of their virtue by inhumane monsters. For example, 61% of the victims raped in Alaska are Native Alaskan women. Most people would assume this may be simply because of their submissive background and their culture to remain shy and willing with the demands of other men. Other cases involve prostitutes and victims of sex trafficking. Prostitution is presently defined as the act of engaging in, agreeing to, or offering sexual conduct in return for a fee, or offering a fee in return for sexual conduct. According to the Department of Homeland Security, human trafficking is a modern-day form of slavery involving the illegal trade of people for exploitation or commercial gain. Every year, millions of men, women, and children are trafficked in countries around the world, including the United States. It is estimated that human trafficking is a $32 billion per year industry, second only to drug trafficking as the most profitable form of transnational crime. Human trafficking is a hidden crime, as victims rarely come forward to seek help because of the language barriers, fear of the traffickers, and/or fear of law enforcement. Traffickers use force, fraud, or coercion to lure their victims and force them into labor or commercial sexual exploitation. They look for people who are vulnerable for a variety of reasons, including economic hardship, natural disasters, or political instability. The trauma can be so great that many may not identify themselves as victims or ask for help, even in highly public settings. Because of this unfortunate hardship, senators are now choosing to view a number of participants in sex trafficking as victims instead of criminals. As a result, Senators Berta Gardner, Liesl McGuire, John Coghill, Click Bishop, and Johnny Ellis sponsored a new bill signed by Governor Parnell that protects sex trafficking victims by adding a clause that would allow accused prostitutes to pursue a verdict of innocence if their participation was compelled through coercion or force. Because both parties are generally involved in the same line of work, it's difficult to determine the differences between prostitutes and victims of sex trafficking. Sex workers also responded to the new amendment in outrage. Katie Moritz displays the tension between former sex workers and their reaction to the bill when she claims several testified that the bill does not get to the root of the problem. Sex trafficked people, those who have been forced into the sex industry against their wills, should not be arrested and charged with prostitution in the first place. Tara Burns, a University of Alaska Fairbanks graduate student and formerly trafficked sex worker, completing her graduate studies on Alaska's sex worker population and has interviewed 40 Alaska sex workers, at the hearing of this legislation argued, asking trafficked sex workers to prove they are victims after they have been brought to court is an unfair legal and psychological burden that will prove to be too much of a barrier for many victims. Because the bill only provides a defense for trafficked people who have been forced into the sex trade, trafficked people who have not been considered forced wouldn't be able to use this defense, and those who decide to turn in their traffickers or pimps for prostitution would face arrest before they are given the chance to prove in court that they were coerced. That won't coax anyone to come forward about wrongdoing. These are very serious human rights violations. You have the ability to create laws and improve this situation. I don't believe this law would do that. I think an affirmative defense is not a workable solution for victims of sex trafficking. They should not be arrested in the first place. Tara Burns couldn't have been more correct about this. There are too many variables that can change the entire look on a real victim of sex trafficking. People who decide to come forward and reveal their work in the sex industry should not be met with imprisonment and non-expungible records destroying their lives. They should be taken care of in a separated facility with consistent therapy to help them move on from the horrors they've faced from living as a former sex worker. This includes both prostitutes and victims of sex trafficking. Alaskans need to take care of those who have been so dehumanized they've forgotten the true meaning of love and worth. These individuals need help finding actual job opportunities to help them back on their feet. They should also experience training in self-defense and manipulation, learning to change from their former submissive lifestyle. If a prostitute should choose to accept the therapy and go back to his or her old habits of living, they will be arrested and charged with prostitution. Everyone should get the option for a second chance at life, but if that second chance is rejected or denied, then the law must be enforced. I believe this is a much better option to fully recognize and help sex workers understand that they're not objects and they're worth so much more than what they charge people for. Sexual intercourse is a highly personal gift of intimacy and affection. Though people have the freedom to choose what they want to do with it, human trafficking should never be an option for stability.